Good evening, students. Welcome to this live session. I hope I'm audible to all of you, and I hope the screen is also visible to you all. So let's start this session. And I hope the screen is also visible to you all. Okay. So I think we can start the session. So before I begin the session, let me just tell you all that at Ekcel Academy, we have successfully completed 2 online coaching classes for the CSEET aspirants, and our success rate has been really good. So that is something which we are very proud of, and we are very happy that our students were able to do extremely well. Now coming to the third batch that we are doing, this will be a recorded session provided with the online support, mentoring and MCQs and notes and other things. To register for this particular batch, the link, the Google form link is provided in the description to all of you. So you can see the description, click on the link, fill up the required fields. It's a very simple form. So I can just fill it up in few minutes. It doesn't even take few minutes, in few seconds, in fact. And the admissions team and the technical team will get in touch with you, and they will help you and by giving the required information. So this is the introduction which I wanted to give, so that there is some clarity about how exactly we are going forward and the things that we have done in the past. Anyway, I hope all of you are ready for a live session on economic and business environment. Like all of you are aware, CSEET stands for Company Secretary Executive Entrance Test. Now, previous to CSEET, ICSI, that is the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, used to conduct the foundation exams. And once students clear the foundation exam, they could go to the next level, which is the executive exams. From the last 6 months or so, or maybe a little earlier to that, a change has been brought in. The foundation has been scrapped. The foundation exams have been scrapped, and CSEET exam has been made compulsory for all the company secretary aspirants. Be it you may be a 12th standard student, you may be in your undergraduation course, or you have already completed your undergraduation, you are a working professional. Irrespective of your background, you are expected to take up the CSEET exam. So that's why it is called the Company Secretary Executive Entrance Test. So this is an entrance test which is mandatory for all of you to clear, and later you will have the entrance to the executive course. So that's how it exactly goes. So this exam becomes, because of the structure that is there now, this becomes very important, and we have to spend considerably good amount of time, refresh, recall all the basics that we have learned in different subjects like English and basic mathematics and economics and all those things, and prepare ourselves for the examination. For those who may not have the complete information, let me share one more bit of information before we start the class. There are 4 papers on which you'll be writing the exam, that is the CSEET exam. Paper 1 focuses on business communication. Then you have paper 2, which is a combination of legal aptitude and logical reasoning. So law is more or less a new paper for most of us. And logical reasoning is based on the basic mathematics, which all of us have learned either in our high school or plus 12 or in our UG course. Then we have paper 3. This is, of course, a discussion on paper 3. The title of this paper is Economic and Business Environment. So this is another interesting and important paper. And the 4th paper is a combination of vivavos. There'll be an oral examination. And another part of the paper is current affairs. So we would be meeting tomorrow once again, and we would discuss the current affairs aspect. So today the discussion is on paper number 3, and paper number 3 focuses on the economic and the business environment. I want to see, but can't fly show. Karna, okay, I don't know. So there is some message. Anyway, I'll just look into that message. So if all of us are ready, we can start the discussion. and we can take it forward. I hope all of you are ready, and I think there are people waiting. So let us not waste any more time. Let us start off with the discussion that we are planning to have today. So let us go a little deeper. Let us divide the session into two parts. So in the first part, I will take you through the chapters that are there in paper number 3, that is economic and business environment. That's very important for us. So we will understand what exactly we'll be studying. And in the second part, we will try to discuss few topics related to chapter number 1. Okay. Now, if you look at paper number 3, like the name suggests, it is economic and business environment. So one part deals with economics and the second part deals with business environment. And if you look at the blueprint, it says that 25 marks is a 50 marks paper. And it says that 25 marks will come from the economics part and the remaining 25 will come from the business environment part. So both these parts are very important for us. And we have to focus and make sure that we learn both the subjects well and we give equal importance to both of them. That is a message which is very clear from the marks distribution blueprint that the institute has provided to us. Anyway, so the first chapter, the name is written here already, and it talks about the basics of demand and supply. So this is something which we have been learning right from our +1, +2 days. So we know what is demand, we know what is supply. So all the topics related to demand and supply is given to us in detail. So that's one part of it. The second part of the chapter deals with the forms of market competition. If you have studied +2 under the NCERT syllabus, chapter number, if I'm correct, chapter number 5 and chapter number 6 deals with forms of market competition. There we have the perfect competition market, imperfect competition markets. Under imperfect, we have monopoly, duopoly, oligopoly, and the monopolistic markets. So this is the subject matter of chapter number 1. This purely deals with microeconomics. This is one of the vast chapters that we have. There are a lot of tables and graphs and all that, which we'll be discussing. But let me make it very clear. This is one of the most interesting chapters that we have in the syllabus. And it is very nice to go through this entire chapter and recall all that we know. And we have to look at things from different dimensions and try to understand it. So this is about the first chapter. The second chapter deals with the national income accounting. And again, this national income accounting was a part of our +2 NCERT syllabus. If I'm correct, it was the second chapter in the macroeconomic syllabus that we had in +2. Here we discuss concepts such as GDP, GNP, NDP, NNP, personal income, private income, investment, savings. All these things are covered in this chapter. Again, a very interesting chapter from macroeconomics. So these are the first two chapters. So first chapter focuses purely on the microeconomics topics. The second chapter focuses on the macroeconomics issues such as the national income. So these are the first two chapters. When we move on to the third chapter deals with the Indian Union budget. So this is again a very interesting chapter that we have, because budget is something which everybody discusses, and it is presented every year by the central government. The finance minister presents it, and these days it is presented on the first working day of February every year. So we get glued to the television sets and we try to know more about the budget that is presented. We try to understand the taxes that are levied. We try to understand the relaxations that are brought in the budget. So this is a very interesting aspect for the people in business, for the people in employment, or people who have got their own profession. So this is something which is of common interest to everybody in the country. So this is one part of it. But there are a lot of concepts, topics, which we as aspiring company secretaries should know. Right. So the technical part of the union budget, what is it actually? There is something called revenue. There is something called expenditure. There is something called revenue expenditure and revenue receipt. There is something called capital expenditure and capital receipt. So all these things are to be known by us, because these are the technical aspects of the union budget. Apart from this chapter also sheds light on things like the important terminologies that each one of us should know to understand budget in a better manner. So if you go through this chapter, if you read, understand, grasp all the topics that are given to us in this chapter, the way in which you will see the union budget from this year onwards would completely change. Whenever the next budget is presented, you will have the technical ability to see the budget from technical angle and understand it in a better fashion. So that is why this chapter is very, very important. And as all of us know, budget plays a very important role in deciding the business environment or the way in which the businesses function. So it is very important for us to know the budget and its functioning. So that is about the third chapter. Fourth chapter is again very interesting. It focuses on the financial sector of our country. So this chapter starts with the first line. The financial sector is the backbone of the economy. The economic progress depends on the financial sector. So what is financial sector all about? All the banks, mutual fund companies, insurance companies, the share market, when all these things are put together, all those businesses, all those organizations and institutions which deal with money, when they are put together, it becomes the financial sector. And money is the lifeblood of any economy. For the economy to progress, there should be money, and this money should keep rolling. That's very important. So who ensures that money is not stagnated with few people? It keeps rolling in the market so that the economy expands. Who does that? It is done by the financial sector. So in this fourth chapter of ours in this syllabus, we go very deep into the banking sector, mutual funds, then the insurance, the NBFCs, the share market, the debentures. We will have a very detailed discussion on each of these topics which are related to the financial sector. Again, a very vast chapter, but leaves us with a lot of knowledge, which is very important. Again, once we understand this chapter really well, we will have control and we will have understanding over the functioning of banks and insurance companies and mutual funds and stock market and other things. We all would have gone to the bank. We all would have, might have invested on mutual funds. We all might have covered our lives with an insurance policy. But what happens after we go and deposit this money? What will the bank or the insurance company or the mutual fund does with all the money that we are investing? These are the questions which we should understand. And this chapter throws light on all these things. This also, again, covers a little bit of FDI, FPI, and all these things comes in the fourth chapter. Again, a vast chapter, but a very interesting chapter for all of us to study and understand. Fifth chapter deals with the economy and the different sectors. If we have to divide the economy, again, it is +1 and +2 syllabus that we'll be covering here, but we will go a little deeper into it and have better understanding. So we will have agriculture and allied practices. That is one sector for us. Then we have the manufacturing sector. Then we have the services. So these are the three important sectors that we'll be studying in this chapter. So here we will again understand the contribution that comes from each of these sectors and how are these sectors actually evolving and becoming bigger, and how are they helping the Indian economy become bigger and bigger. If you see today, Indian economy's value is somewhere around $2.6 trillion. So that is the total value of our economy. We are fifth or sixth largest economy in the world. It keeps fluctuating. Now, the goal with which the government is working, or the goal with which the entire business community is working, is we want to make our economy a $5 trillion economy. That is the goal. So who should do what and who is doing what is what we study in these three sectors. So that is very important. Along with all these things, in this chapter, we will also study about the different policies that the government of India has come out with in order to promote the growth of the Indian economic sectors. What is government of India doing to help the agriculture sector become bigger, or the manufacturing sector become bigger, or how is the government of India promoting the services sector of the company? All those things get covered in this chapter, and it is very, very interesting. A lot to read, a lot to remember, and a lot to discuss. So that's what makes chapter number 5 very interesting for us. Now, coming to the chapter number 6. Chapter number 6 introduces us to the business environment. So here we understand what is business environment. So all this while, we were talking mostly about the microeconomics and the macroeconomics part of it. Now, when we come to the second part of it, in the second part, we will get introduced to business environment. So which are the different categories that we see under business environment, and how is Indian business environment doing in comparison with the business environments that are prevailing in the world. That is another interesting part that we will see in this chapter. We will come across something called the ease of doing business index and all that. So which is very, very interesting. So here we will get some rankings, we get to know some scores. So we will understand how India has progressed and what India has done in order to improve its business environment so that we do well in the world stage, and we are able to do really well to make sure that India becomes a better place to do business. So that is what we will be studying in this chapter. So that's about the business environment. And the next chapter that we have deals with the entrepreneurship. So here we will be discussing the topics related to entrepreneurship. So which are the different programs that government of India has introduced in order to foster entrepreneurship in the country. We will get to know about Startup India, Stand Up India, Skill India. Then we will also discuss about the various schemes that are available to encourage entrepreneurship in the women of the country, in the socially backward communities of the country. What exactly government of India is doing to make sure entrepreneurship is spread across the country, across the society, across all communities. So that is what we'll be studying in chapter number 7. Again, it's a very small chapter, and it is nice to know that good number of questions will be asked from it. And the last chapter deals with the key government institutions. And here we will be studying about RBI, SEBI, Niti Aayog, NCLT, NCLAT, then IBBI. All these things are covered in the last chapter. So these are the 8 chapters that we have in the paper 3 of CSEET exam. And all of them are important, all of them are nice, and all of them are highly informative. Lots to discuss, lots to learn, and it is a kind of fun that all of us will have while going through paper number 3. So this was part 1 of whatever I wanted to discuss with you all. So we will move on to part 2 of this session. Here we will focus on the first few topics. I wouldn't take much time of yours, maybe 15 minutes from now. We will try to discuss the first few topics from chapter number 1 and try to understand how exactly it works. Hope all of you are with me and we can start. If you have any doubts, you can leave it here in the chat box, which is available under the video. So I would be seeing this, and if I can take some questions, I'd be very happy. Okay, I want to see but can't play. Right, as of now we don't have any questions, so I think we can go ahead and start with the topic. Okay, I hope all of you are able to see the screen, and the screen is visible to all of you. So let us start with the topic. Right. Okay. So like I told you, this is the first chapter. It deals with the basics of demand and supply, and then we have the forms of market competition. So let us start with this chapter. So to begin with, we have the meaning of demand. So what is the meaning of demand? So it says demand is an economic principle referring to consumers' desire to purchase goods and services and willingness to pay a price for the specified good or service. So this is what we exactly mean by demand. So if I have to put it in simple terms, what is demand? The quantity of a good or a service which a consumer is ready to purchase at a particular price. That's the simplest of the definitions for demand. Demand is the quantity of good or a service which a consumer is ready to purchase at a particular price. We'll keep it very simple. We'll consider only price now. For him to satisfy or for him to generate demand, there are 3 conditions which are to be satisfied. So which are they? First one is desires. A person should have the desire. In simple terms, you can call it a dream. A person should have the desire or the dream to own a good. I want to own a Benz car. I want to have a house next to the beach. I want to construct a house on the mountain top. So these are the dreams, these are the desires which a person should have. Then there is a chance that he will generate demand for a particular good or a service. Second one is he should have the ability. In economics, we measure the ability of a person mostly based on his spending capacity. What is the money that you have? For example, if you take my case, my desire is to own a Benz car. Do I have enough money to buy a Benz car? If I have, then there is a chance that I will be able to satisfy that particular desire of mine. Otherwise, it will remain as a desire forever. So what is important? Desire backed by ability. And what is ability here? Ability is the spending capacity. That's very important. That's the second condition that a consumer should satisfy in order to make sure that he can generate demand. The third condition is the willingness. Sometimes it so happens that we will have money, but are we willing to spend that money on that particular good or a service? That's the question that all of us have to answer. Let's take an example, it becomes very easy. During our school going days, we all would have desired to eat those ice creams which were sold outside the school. What was stopping us? One is the fear that we might get shouted at home. That stopped us. Second thing is, we did not have that 1 rupee, 2 rupees, or 5 rupees, whatever it is, to pay and buy that ice cream. So this stopped us. Today, when all of us are grown up, you may be 16, 17, 18, 20 years old, 1 rupee, 2 rupees, 5 rupees, 10 rupees is not a big deal. All of you might have it. You may pass in front of your school. That is also there. But are you willing to go and buy that ice cream now and eat? You may not. So what is lacking here? The willingness is lacking. There is no desire. Then also we tell that a person cannot generate demand. So for us to generate demand for a particular good or a service, there are three conditions which are to be satisfied. What are they? First one is the desire. We should have the dream. We should have the desire. We should have the need or want to own a particular good or a service. What's the second condition? Second condition is the ability. Do I have enough money to spend on these goods and services? That's the second thing that is to be satisfied. And the last one is the willingness. Am I willing to spend the money that I have? I may have money, but I may not have the willingness. I may have the money, I have the willingness. So only then, when these three conditions are satisfied, we tell that demand exists or demand is generated. So let's go back to the definition or the meaning of the demand. It says that demand is the quantity of a good or a service which a consumer is ready to consume or purchase at a given price. So let's keep it very simple. We are considering only price. So three conditions which are to be satisfied are: first one is desire, second is ability, and third is willingness. So this is the first topic that we have in our syllabus. Let's proceed ahead. Now the next topic that we have is the law of demand. See, this law of demand can actually be presented in 4 different forms. What are they? First one is the textual form. Second is the tabular form. Third is the graphical form. And fourth is the equation form. So these are the 4 different ways in which the same law of demand can be presented. So the first one is textual, second is tabular, third is graphical, and fourth is in the equation form. So in our syllabus, we don't have equation form, but we have the remaining 3 forms. That's fine. We will see how we can deal with these laws of demand. Right. So we have the law of demand in the textual form. What do we understand by the word textual? Textual is simple when we put it across in the form of words and sentences. That's all. So that is textual form for us. So how do we put it across? How does the law of demand look like? It is already seen on the screen for us. It says, according to the law of demand, other things being equal. So all things are considered constant. Other things being equal, if price of a commodity falls, the quantity demanded of it will rise, and if the price of the commodity rises, its quantity demanded will decline. So what do we understand? When all other things are kept constant, if we consider only two economic variables, which are they? One is price and other is the quantity demanded. When we take these two, so what happens here is when price increases, quantity demanded decreases. When price decreases, quantity demanded increases. So this relationship is put across to us in this form, and it is called the law of demand. So what does the law of demand tell? Let us repeat it. According to the law of demand, when everything is kept constant, generally we refer to it as ceteris paribus. When everything is kept constant, what we observe is when price increases, quantity demanded decreases. When price decreases, quantity demanded increases. So when we put it in the form of words and sentences, it becomes the law of demand, and it is called the textual form. Hope all of you have understood this and you're clear about the law of demand. This same law of demand can be put across in the form of a table. So when we put it across in the form of a table, it becomes the law of demand in tabular form. Law of demand in tabular form. So if you look at this here, like I told you in the beginning, when we are discussing the law of demand, we are considering only two factors. So which are the two factors? One is the price and other is the quantity demanded. Only these two things are considered. All other factors, it might be income, fashion, trend, occupation, gender, age, all these things are kept constant. That's what we call it as keeping all other things constant, ceteris paribus. We are considering only two factors, which are they? One is the price, other is the quantity demanded. So that has been put in the form of a table. So how have we put this in the form of a table here? Price and quantity demanded, no other factors are considered. Let us see the table. Look at the price column first. 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 9, 0. So what's happening here? The price is decreasing. So according to the law of demand, what should happen to the quantity demanded? It should increase. So 0 becomes 200, 200 becomes 400, 600, 800, 1000, 1000. So it increases. So what do we understand here? Price is decreasing, quantity demanded is increasing. So what do we understand? There is an inverse relationship between price and the quantity demanded. Now, if we read the table from the bottom, what do we see? 0 becomes 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So what's happening? Price is increasing. What should happen to the quantity demanded? It should decrease. 1600, 1400, 1200, 1800, 600, 400, 200. So what's happening here? The quantity demanded is decreasing. So when price increases, quantity demanded decreases. When price decreases, quantity demanded increases. So what is this? It's the law of demand. And what have we done? We have put it in the form of a table. Hence, it is called the tabular form of representing the law of demand. Very simple. So what do we understand here? Price is inversely related to the quantity demanded. What does it mean? It means that when one factor increases, other factor invariably decreases. That is what we understand by the law of demand. I hope you have understood the law of demand in the tabular form. If you have any doubts, you can leave it in the chat box there, and I should be able to take your questions and answer. Right. So let us go ahead. I am not seeing any questions as of now. So if there are no questions, I would proceed. Okay, there are no questions. So let me proceed to the next part. Law of demand in graphical form. So what are we doing here? We are representing again the law of demand, nothing else. But what we're doing here is we are putting it across in the form of a graph. That's very important. So let us see what we have done.
So we have taken a graph. A graph is already present for us on the screen, which you can see. So this becomes the y-axis for us. This becomes the x-axis for us. So what we have done is we have taken price on the y-axis. We have taken quantity demanded on the x-axis. So that's what we have done. And we see a red color line here. This red color line is representing demand. Let us name it as DD dash. It's called the demand curve. And what do we see here? Look at this part. Price falls from 60 to 40. So price is reducing. So in correspondence to that, what happens to the quantity demanded? It increases. From where to where? From how much? From 400, it is jumping to 800. So what do we understand? When price is decreasing, quantity demanded is increasing. As simple as that. Let us read it from another angle. Let us say price increases from 40 to 60. Then the demand would fall from 800 to 400. So it is again as per the law of demand. When price decreases, quantity demanded increases. When price increases, quantity demanded decreases. So what is this? This is again the law of demand, but it is put across in the graphical form. So this is what is the graphical representation of the law of demand. I hope you have understood. This is again very important because we can expect a few questions based on the law of demand, based on graphical representation of law of demand. So we need to be careful. We need to make sure that we understand this really well to make sure that we answer all the MCQs that might be asked on the law of demand. Fine. Let's go to the next part. So here is the last form of representing the law of demand. And in this form, what we observe is the same law of demand is expressed or it is presented in the form of a mathematical equation. Very simple equation. All of us would have studied this type of equations in our high school. And we used to call these equations as the linear equations. So if we assign values to the variables that we see here, we will get a straight line which can be plotted on a sheet of graph. So let us understand each of these variables. What do they exactly stand for? So first we have QD. QD represents quantity demanded. So quantity demanded is equal to A minus B into P. That's the equation. Very, very simple equation. QD represents quantity demanded. A and B are collectively called constants. We'll come to that. Before that, what is P? P is very simple. P stands for price. So quantity demanded is represented by QD. Price is represented by Q. So what are we left with? We are left with A and B and this minus sign. What is A? A is the quantity demanded in the absence of price. It means that a producer says, take it just like that, don't pay anything to me. Take how much ever you want. How many units will you pick up from that producer or from that seller is represented by the letter A. When something is given to us just like that, without charging any price, how many units of that particular good or service do we pick up? That is represented by the letter A. What is B representing? B is representing the slope of the demand curve. It's something like this. In the previous slide, we saw this demand curve. So we will draw a right angle triangle like this. Let us name this as A, B, and C. So then we will apply the Pythagoras theorem. So it is AC square is equal to AB square plus BC square. So this is the Pythagoras theorem. We apply all the values and finally we get some result, and that result becomes the slope of that curve and it is represented by B. Anyway, that calculation is not required for us in the CSEET exam. So we just have to know that B represents the slope of the demand curve. We will not worry about the Pythagoras theorem. We will not worry about the substitution and calculation and all that. We just have to understand that B represents the slope of the demand curve. What is minus doing there? Minus is representing the inverse relationship that is found between price and the quantity demanded. So this is what exactly the minus sign represents. So let us very quickly recall this entire equation. QD represents quantity demanded, P represents price, A represents the quantity demanded in the absence of price, and B represents the slope of the demand curve. So these are the different factors that we find in the law of demand equation. So what are we doing here? We are again representing the law of demand in the form of an equation. Simple. That's all. So let's go back now and see if we have covered everything. So in the beginning, I told you that the law of demand can be represented in 4 forms. So which are the 4 forms? The 4 different forms are textual form, tabular form, graphical form, and the equation form. So these are the 4 forms in which we can represent the law of demand, and we have discussed each of these forms individually, and I hope you have understood. If you have any doubts, you can definitely ask. Okay, there is a question that comes from Tripti Sharma. She's asking, what kind of questions asked from this topic? You may be asked, which are the conditions that we have to satisfy in order to generate demand? The 3 conditions are desire, ability, willingness. What is the relationship between price and quantity demanded? Price and quantity demanded are inversely proportional to each other. This can be a question. In the demand equation, that is the law of demand equation, QD is equal to A minus B into P, which is the independent factor and which is the dependent factor. Always remember, price is the independent factor, quantity demanded is the dependent factor. This can be another question. Okay, so this way there are a lot of questions that are possible that you can expect from this part. Very easy, very easy thing to understand, remember, and answer. So this is about the definition of demand, and it is also about the law of demand. I hope all of you have followed things so far, and I don't think there are any more doubts. Priyadarshan DK says, no doubt, sir. Okay, Priyadarshan, thank you. Right. Tripti, I hope I have answered your question. You are clear about the kind of questions that can be asked from this part. Are you sure? Can we proceed ahead? Okay, I don't see any more questions coming. I think we can proceed ahead. Okay, so here is the pictorial representation of the law. Again, the law of demand. So you can just see the first arrow. When price goes up, there is a second arrow which says that quantity demanded goes down. So price goes up, quantity demanded comes down. Then the third arrow, when price goes down, it is reducing. So the quantity demanded goes up. So this is about the law of demand. I hope all of you have understood. This is summing up all that we have discussed so far, this pictorial representation. Shall we proceed ahead? If you do not have any doubts. Yes. Okay. Tripti replies as yes. So we will continue. I'll not take much time, maybe another 5 minutes. We will try to wrap up with this session with the assumptions. Okay. So the assumptions that we make while discussing the law of demand are as follows. There is no change in consumers' income. So we are keeping income as a constant factor. We are assuming that the consumer's income will not change. Generally, when income increases, there is a good chance that we increase our consumption. But here, the assumption that we are making is there is no change in the consumer's income. It will be kept constant. No change in consumer preferences. So say, for example, consumer likes to consume Horlicks, for example. So we will continue. The assumption is the consumer will continue to consume Horlicks and nothing else. Then there is no change in fashion. So say, for example, I don't know how apt this example is, just giving an example. Say bell-bottom pants. I don't know how many of you even know what are bell-bottom pants. If you go back to 1970s and early 80s, men used to wear pants, trousers, which had a big bottom at the end. So they were called the bell-bottom pants. That fashion is all gone, right? So the assumption is from 1970 till today, and the fashion is the same. We still continue to wear bell-bottom pants. Then we have the price of the related goods will not change. Goods are related to each other either in the form of substitutes or in the form of complementary goods. Substitute goods are those which can be used in the place of another one. Best example is coffee and tea. Complementary goods are those which are to be consumed together. For example, a bike and petrol. If you just have a bike, it is of no use. You should have petrol. If you just have petrol and if you don't have a bike, that is also of no use. Petrol and bike coming together, it will generate some some sort of utility to us. So the assumption that we make here is there is no change either in substitutes or in complementary goods price. They all remain the same. No expectation of future price changes. Sometimes if we expect the prices to go up in the days to come, we purchase more today because we don't want to pay extra in the days to come. Similarly, if we expect the prices to fall in future, we will postpone our consumption. But here, in the future, neither the price is going to increase nor it is going to decrease. It is going to remain constant. That's the assumption that we are making. So that's why it will not have any effect on the law of demand. So these are the first 5 assumptions. We have another 5. We will very quickly go through it. No change in size, age composition, and sex ratio of the population. The population continues to be the same. The number of people, the male-female ratio, the average age of the population, everything remains same. Younger population will desire tech-savvy products. If you take India as an example, the average age of India's population is somewhere around 32, 34 years, 32, 34, something of that sort. So that's why products like your Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, all these things are selling really well in India because most of the people are young. We fall into that productive age category, right? So, but when you go to countries where the population is on the higher side, on the average age is on the higher side, there is a chance that their consumption is on the lesser side, especially with respect to the tech-related products. So age also plays a very important role. No change in range of goods available to the consumers. If you take Indian automobile industry as an example, in 1980s, we had only 2 or 3 types of cars. Ambassador, Fiat's Premier Padmini. Then Maruti 800 was just introduced in 1982-83. These are the 2-3 very prominent cars that we have. Today, we have more than 100 cars which are sold and bought in the country. So what does it mean? It means that the range of products have increased in the last 30, 35, 40 years. But what's the assumption that we make here? The assumption is the number of products, the number of goods, the variants that are available to us will all remain constant. It will neither increase nor decrease. No change in distribution of income. So if you look at India today, the number of middle-class families has simply increased. Correct? But the assumption is it will not change. If there were 10 rich people, 20 middle-class people, and 50 lower middle-class people, it will continue to be same. There will be no change in the economic stratification. That is what we understand by this assumption. Next assumption is no change in government policy. Government will not increase tax or decrease tax. Government will not extend subsidies or government will not stop subsidies. That's the assumption that we make. When taxes are levied on a particular good or service, its prices will go up. When subsidies are given by the government to a particular good or a service, it becomes cheaper to us. So, but here the assumption is neither there will be change in taxation nor there will be change in the subsidies. Last assumption that we make here is no change in weather conditions. In India, we predominantly have 3 kinds of weather conditions: the summer, the rainy season, and the winter. But the assumption that we make here is there will be no change in the weather condition. If it is summer, it is going to be summer all 12 months. If it is winter, it is going to be winter all 12 months. See, otherwise, what happens is based on the changing weather conditions, we change the pattern of our consumption as well. But here, the assumption is we are not going to change. There will be absolutely no change in the weather conditions. If there is no change in the weather conditions, there will be no change in our consumption pattern. So that's the assumption that we make here. And we feel that there will be no change in the goods that we consume. I hope you all followed all that was taught in this session. I hope you don't have any doubts, right? If you have doubts, you can definitely leave it in the comments section. So we should be able to take those doubts and answer it. Fine, then we shall stop this session here. I hope this session was of some help to you. In the description, like all of you are seeing, the Google form link has been shared. Like I told you in the beginning of this session, it's a very simple Google form that is there, which has hardly 3 or 4 questions. I'm not very sure. I think so. I happened to see that sometime back. So it's a very simple form, which you can fill it in minutes. If you do that, the tech team will definitely get in touch with you and they'll help you to register yourself for our upcoming batch. Right. So let me just check if you have left any doubts for me so that I can answer those questions. Okay, so let me just see one last time if you have any left, if you have left any doubts. Just a minute, it is getting refreshed. Okay, there is some technical issue. It is not refreshing. I'm not able to see. Some technical issue. I'm not able to see the questions. Okay, if you have any doubts, you can definitely leave it in the chat box and we will answer all your questions. Thank you so much for your participation and patient hearing. Let's meet tomorrow, same time, to discuss the topics related to current affairs. Thank you very much. See you all tomorrow.